Let me ask you something that might sting a little. What if the ending of Doctor Who Season 15 wasn't a victory, but a trap? Because when Ncuti Gat was Doctor regenerated into Billie Piper, fans didn't cheer. They froze. Some screamed. Others laughed nervously. And some whispered the one thing that Russell T Davies probably never wanted to hear. Wait, is Rose Tyler the Doctor now? It sounds impossible. It sounds absurd. But then again, isn't absurdity what Doctor Who does best? Except here's the problem. Not all absurdity is created equal, and not every wild twist is worth paying for. Because if Billie Piper really is the 16th Doctor, then the show isn't just playing with fire. It's holding a flamethrower to its own history. And that's exactly what Colin Baker, the Sixth Doctor himself, has just pointed out. In a recent convention panel, Colin Baker gave a warning so simple, so brutally logical, that it almost felt like he was pulling the handbrake on Russell T Davies' train before it derails. He said, "I suspect it's a load of old malarkey. She's not the Doctor. She's someone else." At first glance, that sounds harmless, maybe even dismissive. But when you stop and really listen, it's not just a comment. It's a prophecy. She's someone else. 4 words that could decide the fate of Billie Piper, the Doctor Who franchise, and the meaning of Rose Tyler herself. Because think about it. Colin Baker isn't just some random critic. He's lived this before. He knows the weight of being the Doctor, and he knows the price of being someone else. He even admitted the irony once upon a time. He was someone else before becoming the Doctor, playing Commander Maxwell before he ever wore the coat of the Sixth. And Doctor Who has done this again and again, plucking background actors, supporting roles, forgotten faces, and giving them the keys to the TARDIS or the spotlight of companion Dom. Nicholas Courtney, Karen Gillan, Peter Capaldi, Varada Sethu, the pattern repeats. But Billie Piper, she isn't some background footnote. She isn't someone we saw once in the shadows. She is Rose Tyler, the heart of the revival, the girl who looked into the TARDIS and became Bad Wolf, the one companion who defined the modern era. If she becomes the 16th Doctor, then suddenly, Rose Tyler isn't a memory. She isn't a chapter. She's a prelude, a warm-up act to herself. And doesn't that sound wrong? Doesn't that sound like it cheapens everything? From Doomsday, on Bad Wolf Bay, to her reunion in Journey's End, to the tears you shed when Ten burned himself into a half-human clone just so she could have a happy ending. That's the danger Colin Baker is warning us about. Because if Billie Piper is the 16th Doctor, then Doctor Who risks cannibalizing its own history. It risks turning one of its greatest emotional arcs into a gimmick. And that leaves us with a terrifying question: was Ncuti Gatwa's regeneration into Billie Piper a genuine handover, or just another trick? Before we answer that, before we uncover the real reason why Colin Baker's right, let me ask you, viewer, have you subscribed to this channel yet? Because if you're still here, caught in this storm of forbidden knowledge, then you already know. This is where we tell the stories no one else dares to. And trust me, the secrets ahead are the ones the BBC would rather you didn't hear. So hit that button, join us, and let's dive deeper. Now, let's go back to the heart of Baker's warning. Because while his words seem simple, their implications are massive. He's pointing out something that cuts right to the bone of the debate. Billie Piper can't be the Doctor because she's already too important. And once you understand that, you start to see the cracks forming in Russell T Davies' master plan. Let's be brutally honest here. Colin Baker isn't immune from criticism. In fact, his whole argument comes with a delicious layer of hypocrisy baked right in. Because when he says Billie Piper can't be the Doctor because she's someone else, fans are quick to point out, "Hey Colin, weren't you also someone else before you wore the coat?" And the answer is yes, absolutely. Colin Baker first appeared in Doctor Who as Commander Maxwell, a Time Lord guard in the 5th Doctor's era, before being recast as the 6th Doctor himself. The very example he gives to dismiss Billie Piper is also the example that proves the show has no problem recycling actors. And he's not alone. Doctor Who's history is a patchwork quilt of second chances. Karen Gillan showed up in The Fires of Pompeii before becoming Amy Pond. Peter Capaldi played a Roman in that same episode before becoming the 12th Doctor. Freema Agyeman, first Adiola in Army of Ghosts, then Martha Jones the very next season. Nicholas Courtney played a random space agent before becoming Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart. The list goes on almost endlessly. So why does Billie Piper feel different? Why is this the one second role that makes fans recoil while Capaldi's upgrade to Doctor was met with applause? The answer cuts deeper than nostalgia. Rose Tyler wasn't a side character. She was the character. She wasn't someone we passed by on the way to Gallifrey. She was the emotional center of the story. She was the one who looked the 9th Doctor in the eyes and saw the war behind his smile. She was the one who held the 10th Doctor's hand and made him laugh again. She was the one who became Bad Wolf, bending time and rewriting destiny. And here's the forbidden knowledge that nobody wants to admit. If Billie Piper becomes the Doctor, then every single moment you loved with Rose Tyler becomes collateral damage. Because suddenly the story isn't about a brave shopgirl who ran away with a Time Lord and changed the universe. It's about the proto-Doctor who eventually upgraded into the real thing. That shift, that reframing, risks destroying one of the most important companion legacies in television history, and Colin Baker sees that danger. That's why he said, "She's someone else?" He wasn't just talking about casting, he was talking about preservation, about keeping Rose Tyler sacred. Now, don't get me wrong, Doctor Who can do anything. That's both its genius and its curse. This is the show that invented regeneration out of desperation. The show that turned a throwaway line about the Doctor's age into the sprawling lore of Gallifrey. The show that gave us the Time War, Beat Generation, the timeless child ideas so wild they feel like fanfiction scribbled on the back of a napkin. And sometimes those swings hit. The Time War, a masterpiece. The Three Doctors, a fan's dream made canon. But then there are the misses. The timeless child that fractured the Doctor's origin, or Beat Generation, which raised more questions than it answered. So when Colin Baker warns that making Billie Piper the 16th Doctor is a load of old malarkey, he's not just being grumpy. He's warning that the BBC is about to take one of the riskiest swings in its entire history. But here's where it gets even stranger, because what if Billie Piper isn't the Doctor at all? What if she's exactly what Baker says, someone else? This is where the theories begin to spiral. And trust me, you're going to want to stick around, because the next layer of this puzzle doesn't just rewrite Billie Piper's role, it reaches all the way back to 2005 to Bad Wolf itself. Let's rewind all the way back to where it all began, 2005. The Ninth Doctor. Rose Tyler looking into the heart of the TARDIS and becoming something more than human. Bad Wolf. That single storyline changed Doctor Who forever. It gave Rose a destiny, it gave the Doctor a miracle, and it gave the audience a reminder that sometimes companions don't just follow, they ascend. And this is where Colin Baker's someone else theory could make sense. Because what if the woman standing in front of us after Ncuti Gatwa's regeneration isn't the 16th Doctor, but Bad Wolf returning once again in Billie Piper's face? Think about it. Bad Wolf already manifested in the Day of the Doctor. It already showed us that it wasn't tied to a single body, a single time, or even a single universe. If the 15th Doctor's regeneration energy got hijacked by the same cosmic force that turned Rose into a godlike being, then Billie Piper's appearance isn't a new incarnation. It's an intervention, a stopgap, a cosmic disguise to teach a Doctor a lesson before they move on to the next true form. In that scenario, Rose's legacy remains intact. She's not overwritten as secretly the Doctor all along. Instead, her bond with the TARDIS becomes the loophole that saves the Doctor's story from collapsing under its own contradictions. But there's another possibility, one far darker. Remember the Mater Crisis Doctor? The 10-2 left behind in the parallel universe with Rose at Bad Wolf Bay. That being was unstable, half Time Lord, half human. He carried the rage of the 10th Doctor and the fragility of mortality. What if something went wrong? What if the walls between worlds cracked again and what stepped out wasn't the real Rosie, but an echo born from the Meta Crisis itself? This would explain why the regeneration looked normal but felt wrong. Why Billie Piper's 16th Doctor still sounded like Rose. Because it wasn't regeneration, it was fusion. A crossover of universes, identities, and timelines all colliding at once. And if that's the case, Colin Baker's warning hits even harder. Because then we're no longer talking about a new Doctor. We're talking about an aberration, a mistake in the very fabric of the show. Which brings us to the real forbidden truth the Doctor Who has written itself into a corner. On one side, you have the fans who would welcome Billie Piper back in any form. On the other, you have the legacy of Rose Tyler, a story so beloved that tampering with it risks collapsing the goodwill of an entire era. Colin Baker's comment wasn't just a throwaway line at a convention, it was a quiet warning. A reminder that just because Doctor Who can do anything doesn't mean it should. That some doors, once opened, can't be closed. Because if Billie Piper truly is the 16th Doctor, then Rose Tyler is gone forever. Every tear shed at Doomsday, every heartbeat in Journey's End, every whisper of Bad Wolf suddenly becomes prologue to a story that was never meant to be hers. And maybe that's why Colin laughed it off with the words, "a load of old malarkey." Because deep down, he knows the truth. If Billie Piper is someone else, then Rose can live on. But if she's the Doctor, then everything we thought we knew about Doctor Who's greatest love story has just been rewritten. And the scariest part, the BBC still hasn't told us which one it is.